Deltarune is a mysterious game that captures the imagination. From Chris and the relationship with the player to the disappearance of Des and Ralsei's unclear intentions, there's a lot to digest, discuss, and debate. Yet one topic I feel gets overlooked is not Noelle herself, nor her missing sister, nor even whether Rudy will live or die, but her mother, the mayor, whose name may or may not start with C, who otherwise remains an enigmatic presence in both chapters. But though we may not have seen her, we've learned quite a bit about the mayor and her worrying relationship with her daughter. So in this video, I'd like to discuss what little scraps of information we've been granted, as well as what it might mean for Noelle, the cast, and Deltarune as a whole. Chapter 1. Chapter 1 of Deltarune sets the foundation for what we know about the mayor. She's established as busy, cold, and lacking in charisma. She works hard, with zero opposition, so she's remained the mayor for a long time. She's described as icy, and even keeps the AC on full blast. This chilling vibe sets up Noelle's ice-based magic in Chapter 2 quite well as her habit of standing in front of the refrigerator at the grocery store. More interestingly are the words of the hand receptionist. "If you want to see her, try causing a terrible crisis." This suggests that when we finally do meet the mayor, it'll be when the story takes a darker turn. This could even shed some light into Chris's intentions at the end of Chapter 2, though we'll have to wait and see how that develops before drawing too many conclusions. But there are a few other places that give us insight on the mayor. At the end of Chapter 1, Noelle lost the key to the mansion, and when pressed on why she doesn't ask her mother for help, Noelle gets uncomfortable, mentioning how her mom doesn't like being bothered at work. She insists it's fine and that she'll just go spend time with Caddy instead, but this already sets a worrying tone for her relationship with her mother that only grows worse in Chapter 2. There's also the eviction notice in Asgor's flower shop, berating him for giving away free flowers instead of selling them. The tone is blunt, harsh, and uncompromising, which fits well with the descriptions of the mayor from other NPCs, as well as Noelle's personal intimidation. Interestingly, it's signed with C, which has led many to believe the mayor's name starts with C, which led to popular guesses like Clarice and Carol. However, this is only a popular hunch. We don't know for sure if this is the mayor, but given the looming presence, it's a reasonable assumption to make. Beyond that, we didn't have much to work with until Chapter 2 presented some interesting new content, which brings us to a certain character who certainly knows how to make an entrance. Queen is the Chapter 2 antagonist, and one many have viewed as a parallel to Noelle's mother. There's a great video called The Universal Mother Theory by Cookie Autumn that I'll link above that goes into great depth about how Queen could represent mother figures for multiple party members in the chapter. But for the purpose of this video, I'd like to zero in on the most obvious choice, Noelle, and how Queen might represent her complicated relationship with her mother. At a glance, it's easy to see the similarities. Queen is controlling, overbearing, and tries to make Noelle do things against her will. Noelle also has extreme difficulty saying no to her, having been roped into being Queen's peon due to her timid nature. But one thing that's clear from the start is that Queen is not a literal copy. She's very goofy, bombastic, and far more emotional for one. She has a loud, over-the-top presence like a cartoon villain, and while she is very controlling with her use of wires and her desire to make Noelle's face into a robot one and keep her as a peon, she is simultaneously trying to impress Noelle as well as Chris through grand displays of her power and quirky little things like dropping an arcade cabinet out of the blue, blasting her mixtape, and creating rooms tailored to each Lightner's preferences. Queen is not necessarily a good person, as she enslaves the Wires and later Birdly, is willing to endanger teenagers to get what she wants, and disregards the agency of those around her. However, she is also acting out of a genuine desire to make Lightners happy, to make Noelle stronger, and expand the Dark World to everyone's benefit. She values Chris as a trucie, was moved by Noelle's sad searches, and while she pressures Noelle to unleash her full power by threatening her friends, all this paints a more layered picture of a mother figure than what we know of the mayor so far. Which begs the question, is Queen really a parallel to the mayor's true personality and intentions, or is she a rose-tinted parallel at best? Noelle's arc of standing up for herself and to Queen does mirror a path that Noelle will need to tread eventually with her real mother to find happiness, and yet Queen in many ways feels like the inverse of the mayor. She's so doting that it's suffocating, while the mayor is distant. She's expressive and fun, while the mayor is cold and stern. She's incredibly outgoing and seems to enjoy the attention her status grants her and is very eager to impress. The mayor, on the other hand, remains within her office, hates being interrupted, and her presence is felt solely through word of mouth so far. The difference is night and day. That's not to say the comparison is without merit. After all, many see King in Chapter 1 as a foil to Susie, her worst traits amplified. Knowing that Susie is a new girl in town who seemingly has a poor relationship with her parents, is largely friendless, and spends the initial part of Chapter 1 trying to be strong and intimidating, and then comparing her to King, who not only quotes her verbatim at one point, but feels resentment at being abandoned by the Lightners and is willing to stomp all over others to retain his fragile position of power, well, one can certainly argue that while Queen is not exactly like Noelle's mother, she still serves a purpose as a thematic parallel and foil, while being an independent character. Much as King accentuates many of Susie's worst traits, we could then take those rose-tinted glasses off and see Queen as a more symbolic analog to Noelle and her mother's relationship. We know that Noelle gets high grades and performs well in sports. It's also entirely possible that the mayor holds her to high standards. She could very well want Noelle to live up to her potential and is simply less doting and smothering about it. However, I advise caution in using Queen as a template for the mayor's character, just as I advise caution in assuming everything about Noelle and Queen's relationship is identical to that of Noelle and her real mother. No, I believe that for now, we had best turn our attention elsewhere to grasp the mayor's personality and character. Intimidation and Abuse. Luckily, the second town section of the game provides a lot more context not only to the mayor as a character, but to her relationship with Noelle, which has further been accentuated by the Spampton sweepstakes. Firstly, there's Alfie's and the NPCs in the police station. Alfie sets the tone by mentioning how, with the mayor around, the police are just eye candy, that she's got such a good track record in stomping at crime that you could even argue that the police get in her way. When you add this to Asgore's removal from the force, it does raise some interesting questions about his relationship with the mayor, and if perhaps they were at odds over something, such as deaths and her disappearance. I touched on this in my recent video, which you can find above and in the description. But to add to the mayor's iron grip on crime, the Wet-Nosed Bandits talk about how they tried to rob the Holiday Mansion only for a terrifying figure to descend upon them, sending them fleeing right into the jail cell. Given every other descriptor thus far, it's safe to assume that this too is the mayor, and that she is a force to be reckoned with. The first truly worrying sign comes when you walk into the hospital room in the normal route. Noelle laments about her lack of healing magic. When she says, "It wouldn't just be me and Mom," she looks genuinely heartbroken and scared. Though Rudy tries to comfort her about her mom, he trails off, instead reassuring Noelle that he'll be on his feet again soon. This doesn't bode particularly well, especially when you consider the dialogue that comes after she leaves, where Rudy says that while Noelle seems like she has it all, her mother is tough on her. He may balance it out normally, but without him, there's this unspoken undercurrent of worry for Noelle's well-being and safety. I think I may have an idea of where Toby is going with this, though it's far from pleasant. Rudy's inability to truly comfort Noelle about her mother, coupled with Noelle's fear of said mother, has undertones of abuse. While Rudy is open, loving, and shares interest with his daughter, the Ice Palace Glacier page of the Spampton Sweepstakes shows that this side of the mayor existed even in Noelle's childhood. Noelle mentions being scared to cry or make too much noise while gaming at night in fear of her mother unplugging the console. Now you could view this as a concerned parent trying to turn off the thing that is distressing her child, but Noelle was just as scared to yell with excitement later. This paints Miss Holiday's actions in a far more controlling light. The Noelle expressing her emotions in such a loud fashion is frowned upon. There are other worrying signs too. In the city, Noelle mentions how Des wanted to take her somewhere far away, like Cyber City. It's possible, but not conclusive, that Des, as the older sibling, saw the red flags in her mother and wanted to take Noelle away from it all, if only for a short time. But I must concede that it's just as possible that Des's disappearance caused a shift in the mayor's personality. It could just simply have caused the mayor to become colder, more intimidating, and someone who crushes crime with an iron fist and refuses to see anyone unless it's a real emergency. Add that to Rudy's illness, and she could be hurting deep down. She's already lost one daughter, and her husband could die, and she's coping by burying herself in work and taking it out on Noelle. As I mentioned in my previous Des video, some have even speculated that the mayor is the Roaring Knight, acting out of a desire to A. save her husband, B. find Des, and is acting out of a sort of Faustian deal with the devil. As a quick addendum, the mayor being the knight would actually make Queen's motivations advanced foreshadowing. If you look at her dialogue in the Giga Queen fight, of Noelle and everyone living free of pain and suffering, one could potentially see the mayor's motives through that, but this is still just a guess. It's a compelling idea to be sure, and would certainly lend itself to a future confrontation with Noelle and her mother, but right now it's just too soon to say. We do know that the mayor is preparing for the festival, and while some have speculating that this festival will overlap with the Roaring, that too is pure speculation. But while the fantastical and tragic justifications have their place in the discussion, I don't think they really excuse everything. Because regardless of reason, Noelle is scared of her mother. Noelle has been conditioned to be a doormat who can't say no to anyone but her father and Chris. That eagerness to please others is often a sign of abuse and neglect. When you're repeatedly faced with harsh expectations, especially from loved ones, it's easy to fall into the habit of saying yes, keeping your head low, and going out of your way to make others happy, even if it's to your own detriment. The Weird Route shows this in how, while Noelle is apprehensive, she ultimately cracks under the pressure and proceeds down this horrific path, all in the pursuit of strength. Though she breaks from the trance briefly to warn Birdley and does question the voice that gave her the commands, and does want to get to the bottom of the things, she's still intimidated by Chris, which shows our abuse took its toll on her. The mayor, of course, isn't making Noelle kill anyone. We know very little about how she treats Noelle at home, other than her being tough and distant. While Rudy supports Noelle's romantic endeavors and shares her interest in gaming, the mayor would sooner turn those games off. A parent's job is to support and provide for their children, yet the mayor would rather work rather than support her daughter at a time where they are both hurting from Rudy's illness. It's entirely possible that the mayor copes with her grief and fear of her husband's passing with her work, but that doesn't change the fact that Noelle and her mother need to communicate. I do not think Toby needs to write the mayor as a villain. I think there's room for the two to confront each other in a Dark World setting, laying the mayor's true feelings bare and showing there's another side to her. But if Toby does commit to the abusive parent and unhealthy marriage angle, I would certainly not complain, for it would be a bold storytelling decision that might make for a relative narrative to many players. Not all parents are good, not all marriages are healthy and happy, and Deltarune and Undertale have both already tackled incredibly heavy themes, so this wouldn't even be out of place. Lest we forget, Kara took their own life. Fly would later attempt the same thing, even if he got cold feet in the end and reloaded. Toriel struggles with alcoholism, as confirmed by the alarm clock dialogue, and Asgore, Alphys, and Sans can all be read as suffering from some form of depression. Beneath the bright and wacky exterior, Toby's games have often delved into heavier themes, even as far back as the Halloween hack. And Deltarune already deals in much more explicitly dark tones, with Rudy's illness, the themes of existentialism and control with Chris, and everything involving Spampton, the Broken Dreamer family, and so much more. Undertale released in 2015, and I can absolutely see Deltarune growing up with its audience, so to speak. But this is all conjecture for now. You might wonder how Rudy's love of the mayor factors in, and I would say it really depends on the direction Toby is going. Marriages are not always happy and stable, and there are times where one partner in a relationship may not even be fully aware of the red flags, or is willing to excuse them. I don't think Rudy is a pushover, or that he's remotely on board with how Noelle is being treated, but I also think it's much harder for him to do anything about it when he's in the hospital. And because it's entirely possible he will die, I truly do worry for what this could mean for Noelle and her mother, because if Rudy dies, I can only see their relationship getting worse before it gets better. But who knows, perhaps Toby will surprise us by giving Rudy a recovery plot twist. Perhaps there is hope for the Holiday family, whether he lives or dies. While Rudy died in Undertale's world, to be fair, Gerson is dead in Deltarune, yet lives in the previous game. Asriel died in Undertale, yet is alive and well in Deltarune. We cannot, nor should we, assume that everything will directly parallel Undertale. One pervading element throughout Deltarune has been a state of things feeling off to what we know, from Bratty and Caddy's rivalry to Undyne and Alphys being relative strangers. As for what I hope will happen with the mayor, that's difficult to say when there's so much of the story up in the air. But given what we do know, I would really like to see Noelle put her foot down. I'd like to see Susie, Chris, and all their other friends show solidarity with Noelle when facing her mom. Just as Noelle was able to stick up to Queen, I'd so desperately crave for her finding the conviction to set her own boundaries and live her own life. And I think that, in a way, Noelle's relationship with her mom could mirror Chris's relationship with us. Perhaps in the normal route, Noelle is able to mend that relationship and find happiness, and we are able to form a healthy partnership with Chris, while in the weird route, things take a far darker turn. For now, I'd like to ask what you all think of the mayor, her relationship with Noelle, and where you think the story will go. Comments among each other, and let's get the discussion going. We've reached the end of the year, and I'd like to thank everyone who has supported this channel in that time. It's hard to believe we passed 20k. This time last year, I think I was still sub 10,000. It's my hope that in 2023, as my content output grows, we can hit even bigger milestones like 25k and beyond. I have a lot of ideas for videos I want to make for both Undertale, Deltarune, and other fandoms like Kingdom Hearts. People have requested an Asgore analysis, Metaton, and I really do want to discuss Ralsei, as well as do some videos on Undertale fanworks I adore, give a proper introduction and overview to Inverted Fate, and so much more. But naturally, there's tons of Kingdom Hearts characters and other fandoms like Sonic SatAM that I'd love to tackle at another time. If you'd like to stay up to date on my various projects on a more behind-the-scenes level, and weigh in on polls, see work-in-progress scripts, and enjoy concept art and music demos for Inverted Fate, among other content, please do consider pledging on my Patreon, like these fine folks pictured here. Every bit of support allows me to keep producing content as a career. If you like Kingdom Hearts, consider checking out my recent Terra analysis video. And to all of you, I hope you're having a wonderful holiday season, regardless of what you celebrate. Thanks so much for watching.